continue breaking down Apple's results. They reported just a short while ago. Gene Munster, analyst at Piper Jaffray, joining us by phone. Gene is very closely watched when it comes to news about Apple. So, Gene, what do you think about their earnings release?
It was phenomenal. It was all driven by the Mac, up 33% year over year. Our original estimates for the December quarter was up 14%, so big outperformance on the Mac, and I think that's what everybody's going to be focusing in on.
So you don't think, by the way, the accounting change was a smokescreen here, because we didn't really get much forewarning?
Well, we knew that it would happen by the end of June, and so this might be a little bit earlier than some people would, a quarter earlier than some people would have expected. But we're obviously going through the numbers now. It appears that they have guided revenue slightly better than where the street is for the March quarter, and over the last 3 years they've guided down in all but one of the quarters. So they obviously have a history of guiding down to be conservative. So I think that guidance is really driven by strength in the Mac, and I think that's going to be kind of the theme as people really dig into these numbers, the strength in the Mac.
Gene, it's Julie Hyman here. When you look at the per share number here of $367 and the profit number, which would represent a 50% increase, is that compare with your estimates at all? Because it seems to blow away what analysts were looking for. Yeah, I mean, you have to. It's not clear right now, but I can say that as close to the number as we get is that they would have done. Our equivalent number was 330. So think of that 367 number in the context of our number was 330. So they had a strong quarter when you even compare it to kind of the apples-to-apples comparison.
Hey, Gene, what did you think about the international as a driver for growth? Because, as you know, a lot of people have been talking about this as one of the biggest contributions to revenue growth. What did you feel about what you saw in the report for this one? It
really is going global, and I think that 58% of the sales international this quarter, it was at about 50% a year ago, and so that's a major shift, and I think that's a sign that they're really able to move that Apple brand globally. And if you think about the addressable markets, I think you're going to see continued acceleration in the percentage of sales internationally. Basically, what's worked in the U.S. is working globally.
Gene, you know, their gross margin, too, I'm checking last quarter 36.6%, this quarter 40.9%. It really feels like they are firing on all cylinders.
They are. I mean, that gross margin, you got there's some accounting changes that could go into that. It's safe to say is that they beat on the gross margin side, and no one thought that they can keep these margins going up, and they just keep going up. But it's the magnitude of the beat probably isn't that significant once you compare it on a comparative basis.
What does all this mean for the shares? I mean, we're looking at shares that more than doubled in the last 12 months. Going forward, if they are guiding up, I mean, they normally guide down. The gross margins are impressing. We're waiting for an incredible tablet. What do you think we're going to see going forward?
Well, from a stock perspective, I think that it's going to go up, and in the near term, and I think the reason is that the Mac numbers need to take a step up. So that gets us kind of taken care of, at least for the first quarter. And then, you know, it seems that as we get into the back to school, we're at 33% year-over-year growth for the Mac right now. It was 41% before the slowdown. So as far as shares are concerned, if they can get back to where they were before this economic slowdown, there's still upside to the numbers over the next year.
Gene, just very, very quickly here, why, though, the shortfall in the sales of the iPhones? 8.8 million was your estimate. 8.7 million is where they came in.
Well, I mean, I kind of put that in a category of a small disappointment. It's pretty close there, and I think that part of it is some of the issues with AT&T. It's definitely a question I'm going to ask on the call.
Hey, Gene, this is Chris in San Francisco. Have to ask about the tablet because, you know, we've been talking about this for so long. But what does this necessarily mean, do you think, from the gross margin standpoint? Can it hold up, the introduction of this, for that? And are people pricing it in? I mean, when we got the iPhone, it was ahead of the earnings reports. This is after. When do people make their investment decisions?
Well, I think that some people will sell the stock when the actual announcement comes out of the actual phone. But ultimately, I think that this is, you know, as far as the tablet's concerned, it's going to take a few quarters to get going, and I think a few quarters before investors really feel comfortable at putting real money to work. There's a lot of talk about it right now, but there's a lot we don't know. We don't know the price, and that's the biggest question is this thing going to be a niche market or mainstream? And so my take is, as far as the tablet's concerned, let's see what they're going to charge for it, and then we can figure out what the demand's going to be.
Gene, I got 10 seconds left here. The stock's down about 2% here in the aftermarket. Would you be selling on this news? Just quickly.
No, I think that these numbers, the street numbers, as people go through their model tonight, are going up, which should be positive for the stock.
All right, good to know. And always great to get time with you. Gene, thank you so much. Gene Munster with the lowdown on Apple's earnings.